Taking ordinary steps every day makes all the difference in learning to love the artist within. Just the simple task of putting one foot in front of the other seems painstakingly difficult when faced with fear, depression, anxiety, and low self-worth. It may seem as if we're not making monumental change in the moment with the simple decision of putting one foot in front of the other. But we are. Taking ordinary steps leads to extraordinary change. Hi, I'm Amy. As we talk with our next guest, there were certainly times in his life where shifting perspective, facing fear, and finding his superpower were the keys to his survival. But he chose to do more than survive. He chose to thrive. Let's meet Glenn Proctor, 40-year journalist, Pulitzer Prize winner, author, Marine Gunner Sergeant, Vietnam vet, leadership coach, mental health advocate. Those are just some of his accomplishments. Glenn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us when you first began to love the artist in yourself?
Well, I started writing poetry when I was 8, and I didn't know it was poetry. I didn't know what it was. I was just writing about my experience as a foster kid, and and growing up. And then as that continued, I wrote about my alcohol situation. I wrote about being in the Marines, being in war. So it kind of kept progressing into all my life experiences and my life experiences, but what I also seen and heard as a journalist, as a Black man in America.
How did you go from writing poetry at an early age to now being the author of 5 books?
It all begins with belief. Jesse Jackson said it's kind of it's a cliche, but it's out there. But if you don't believe it, you can't achieve it. It's true. You have to believe. You have to believe that you can do this. You have to believe that you can do this. You have to believe you're gonna get out of the mud. And I'm talking about combat boots and a rifle. All of us are afraid at some point or another. That part I will absolutely agree with, but we absolutely have to believe. When I started my career, once I kind of got my legs under it, I had 3 goals: teach college journalism, win a Pulitzer, and be a top editor. I did all 3. I may not be the smartest guy in the room, but I know what works.
So can you talk to us as an author and a leadership coach and as a, accomplished person that you are, how rules apply and how do we kick them to the curb?
Well, I would start with, what do we want? It sounds very simplistic, but what do we want? Do we want X, Y, Z? And with the ideas, yes, all of us have 100 ideas, but we can only execute 2 or 3. And that's one of the things that I talk about is we all overthink everything. And then, of course, when our minds are on runaway, we have all these a myriad of all these thoughts and conversations, and then we end up with nothing because that voice comes in and kills all the ideas, all the thoughts, and but we get 2 or 3 cogent ideas and start working with those and set goals, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. People are like, oh, well, by next year. No, maybe by next week, maybe by 2 weeks from now, maybe a month from now. Do this and write them down. It may be It may be walking 2 blocks, as opposed to a mile. But I mean, we talk about everything begins with one step, and that is true. Just like in, in AA and some of the substance abuse scenarios, one step at a time, and that's because one thing I teach is the goals are too high, and the goals are scary. Oh my God! By next year, I'll have 2 books written. No, by next month you'll have 10 pages written. And that's one thing I find. Once the goal is set too high, people ended up abandoning the goal because it scares the hell out of them. You can set goals, but just watch the level of goals that you're setting and don't make them astronomical, because otherwise they're going to scare the hell out of you. You're not going to do them.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of your slogan about ego. Can you tell us a little bit about your definition of ego? What does that stand for?
Well, energy, it's the slogan of REDDjobb, my company. Energy gets opportunity. The more energy we have, the more opportunities we will get. But if you work hard, there's no guarantee, but you'll be in a better place than if you didn't work hard and if you didn't push buttons. I always said throughout my journalism career that I'm going to work harder. I'm going to be a better reporter. I'm going to be a better editor. I'm going to understand this whole thing about leading a team. And of course I got some of that in the Marines, but you have to don't be afraid of what is ahead of you. Never be afraid of what's ahead of you, and believe that you can get to this step, and then the next step, and then the next step, and then the next step. And if you look at it that way, you can succeed. But I just believe that hard work and pushing buttons, pushing your own self-leadership buttons, that's what can, take you up the ladder.
Yes, I agree. And taking those ordinary steps, those everyday, just putting one foot in front of the other sometimes.
Yep.
Sometimes depression felt as if I was in a dark room, like there was no way that I could get out.
Yep.
But just making those ordinary choices to take a shower today, to go outside today, to write a sentence today, to write 2 sentences. And then you find over the course of time, you're healing yourself, you're finding your superpower, you're recovering, and you're creating all at the same time. And you're achieving the goals that your brain has been saying, oh, nope, you can't do. See, you're sitting here again today. See?
Well, I all those things I call self-leadership. And when, I talk about that, people are like, I'm like, from when you get up and when you get dressed and how you look when you go in public, all simple, so-called normal activities of life, but those are so important.
How can an artist decide to thrive instead of just survive?
Well, the other thing on my website signature, if you don't create your own direction, others will help you stay lost.
Oh, yes. That's good. That's really good.
It goes back to, what do you want? Because that has to be a self-leadership decision, not a family member, not even your business partner or spouse, or what does that person want? Believe, focus, plan, and execute. Those 4.
Those are the pillars of.
Yep.
Excellent. Talk a little bit about your pillars real quick.
Well, you believe. If you don't believe it, well, it's kind of out the window right there. You have to believe it first. I mean, I always say belief is 90%, because if you totally believe, nothing's going to stop you. Nothing's going to stop you. And then, of course, once you believe, you laser beam your mind, into it. This is what I'm going to focus on. And then you write your steps down to plan. And then you follow your plan. And your plan can be revised 100 times, but it's written down. And so you have a template, you have a baseline from which to go. And then you execute. And as and there's where, in some cases, you're building the plane as you fly it. Executing. I mean, when you're starting a business, or you don't know everything. Even if you've been in it for a while, you still don't know everything. And so you have to keep changing, revising the situation time and time again. When I was teaching journalism, I always used to tell my students, we would write something at the beginning of the semester, and then maybe at the 6-week mark or some midway mark, I'd go back and read what you wrote. And majority would this is schlock. I don't like this. And they would rewrite it.
It's shifting your perspective. Always being willing and able to shift.
Yep. Shift. Yep. Yeah. Well, like I say in the book, it's change. It's the change. It's change. It's change. And we may not like change in every aspect, but it's coming no matter what. And the key is, are we prepped for it? Are we prepped, whether we have our material supplies or we have our mental supply, our mindset, because something is going to come after this.
Mindset.
Yep.
It's all about the mindset. Could you leave us with 3 things writers could do, or artists could do, when faced with a creative block?
Love your creativity. And what that means is believe in it. Believe in your creativity. Practice your creativity. Don't put it aside. And just believe that if you believe in it, somebody else will. Just love your art, whatever it is. Just love it. Will it be revised or rewritten or all of that? Yes. But love the process of the creating the art or the writing or, whatever your creative genre is, and put your heart and your soul and your feet into it.
It's you don't have to be a famous artist. You just have to be an effective artist.
Yep. I like that. You can use that one.
I'll certainly credit you for that. That's awesome.
No judgment. No judgment. No judgment. No judgment. That little thing in our heads says we can't. Distractions, waiting, and fear. Distractions, waiting, and fear. Don't allow them to be your friends.
Thanks for watching. I'll close with this. After our interview, Glenn sent me a postscript in which he said, "A person who learns how to change knows how to live and thrive." Learning to love oneself and one's art is a tremendous change. And being able to change is a superpower.